Right, welcome back to the channel and let's get on with the video. So it's been a day since Ubisoft Forward happened and a lot of information has come out since regarding Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And I mean a lot. But before beginning, to the three people who are going to end up watching this video, like the video if you find it interesting and subscribe if you are not already subscribed. And I will be covering many more games and more Valhalla content is coming in the future. So with all that stuff out of the way, so here's the stuff that I missed from the original reveal, and also as the title of the video suggests, these are the 8 ways where Assassin's Creed Valhalla is a huge improvement over Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Now, in the beginning, I'll just recount what I have discussed previously. If you have already seen the video, which not many people have, I'll just give you the time to skip to in the sections. You can also look at the chapters and just skip it. Yeah, but I'll just give a brief rundown of what I discussed there. So the first point was combat in Valhalla was improved from Odyssey. Stealth, again pretty much like the previous titles but with slight improvements here and there. Social stealth, it is back, but it is unclear how big of a role it will play. Story, the presentation of the cutscenes is awful, at least from what I saw, but just like Odyssey in that way. Faces are also ugly and the facial animations are also on par with Odyssey, which were also again very poor. The world had brilliant atmosphere. So that is the highlights of what I discussed in the previous video. I will link that above somewhere. The cards will come up to the right. If you want to see it, you can go and see it. Now, moving on to the main meat of this video, I will be dividing this video into various sections where the improvements have been made, and I will also timestamp all of the sections for ease of access. Now the sections themselves will be word, oh my god, world, not word, world, side content, design, gear and loot, abilities and skills, combat, stealth, and in the end, social stealth. Now, starting off with the first section, that is the world. Honestly, I have already praised the way the world was presented. It seems immersive from what I have seen from the footage that we have and the various YouTubers who have given out extra footage, and also from what people are saying about this game. It seems to be a very good open world. It is maybe not as graphically advanced as we have seen from more AAA titles. This is kind of an aging engine, but the atmosphere itself is still great, and I don't care about graphics because again I'm running on a crappy laptop, so there's that. Now with all of that said, let's get to the things that I did not discuss in the previous video, that being the world no longer has these exploration check marks. There are no question marks in the maps, and you just go to a location and you just don't have that thing where you go to a location and there is a HUD element in your right side, in the bottom right of the screen, that tells you exactly what the things there are in that section and you need to complete, and they have a checklist of completion things. You need to tick everything off in a checklist and complete it. That is no longer there. So what they did in place of that is they have a general amount of secrets. So say an entire section of the map, it has 20 secrets, 20 hidden areas and all that, and they just say that there are 20. It says that in the map itself, but other than that you know nothing. There are no icons on the map, there are no question marks on the map. When you go to a location, you don't actually know what to do, you don't know how to discover it or whatever, or even what to discover there. You kind of have to figure things out on your own. That is something which, if it's true and it's happening, and from what I saw it did happen, that is brilliant. That is exactly what the exploration in these games needed. For example, Origins and Odyssey both had the problem where we knew exactly what we were going to get, and we need to go into a bandit camp, kill the bandit leader, get the 2 chests that are there, and then grab some kind of a collectible or something, and you are done. So now in this game, the innovation itself is that the exploration will feel more organic. You will feel that you are actually trying to explore something, try to figure out what the hell is in here. So yeah, brilliant job already with that. So they are not just having a checklist of stuff that you tick and you complete the game. Instead, the exploration is based on what you are trying to do. I think in one of the interviews, Darby McDevitt, who is the lead writer, I think in this one, he says that it is better not to fast travel in this game, as you might end up missing a lot of side activities that just happen, and these side activities they are not going to show up in your map. So it's not like oh, there's a question mark right there, I'll just mark that and I'll go there and I'll do something. No, when you travel through the world, maybe you'll notice a hut, and you want to go ahead and look at that hut. So like if you find some supplies inside or whatever, and that might contain a secret. So as far as the exploration goes, I feel like this has more, in exploration department, it has more common with Skyrim than with Origins and Odyssey, and I feel that is brilliant, because if anyone knows anything about Skyrim, it is the exploration bit of Skyrim that was excellent. Moving on. As I said, side activities. Side activities takes up the second section of the game, side content. And side content is very interesting in this one. To start off, you can recruit and have a cat in your longboat. A cat. And I missed that. I will feel really bad that I missed that. So that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is a Game of the Year candidate. Right there. Now moving to a more serious note. As far as side content goes, there are no side quests in the game. Yeah, I am not joking. That is actually a thing. So side quests have been replaced by these world events, like the one we saw in the extended gameplay demo where, Ivor goes after two children who stole something from the altars. So yeah, Darby McDevitt kind of confirmed that these things will not show up in your quest log. So like, it's not like you go to a location and someone is like, someone is standing cross-armed and he gives you a quest and it shows up in your quest log, that you can do it at any moment in time. Essentially, again, a checklisting experience. That is also gone. These events will happen in the world and they will happen with or without you. So essentially, one of the examples that I saw in one of the videos, one of the interviews, I'll try to link all of these videos in my own video so that you guys can personally go and see it. I'm just compiling everything into one video so that it's easier for everyone. Anyway, coming back to the point. So yeah, in that particular interaction, so there's this girl whose horse has ran off and she tells you to get back her horse. Standard RPG stuff. But the thing is, this is just a world event. This is not a quest. This is not some story that you need to complete for experience points. I mean, I think you do get some ability points or some shit, but yeah. So what you do in that case is, if you don't want to, you don't have to engage in that content. You won't even have to look at your content anymore. Only the main quests show up, or the general quest show up in your quest log. These kind of side content will not even show up in the quest log. If you want to do it, you are open to do it. If you don't want to do it, you want to just proceed with the game, you can do that as well. So it's not like Odyssey where like everything, like it says an objective, you have to go there, you have to come back, then you get experience points, you grind experience points, you get to a certain level. All that is gone in this one. Now, Darby also said in one of these interviews that the quest design has been changed. So unlike Odyssey and Origins and even other RPGs, he said other RPGs, but I'm pretty sure he meant Witcher 3 with that. You are not a hero in this, and that should be pretty obvious. I mean, you literally just invaded their country. So the interactions in the world will reflect that. At least that's what he says. And he said that very specifically, if we have done our job correctly, then you will feel that these things have meaning. And he said that they are not going to be your generic fetch quests or something like that. They will have more of a narrative focus rather than them being just, just go get me this and I'll give you money, or go get me this and I'll give you my thanks. Yeah, some people were too poor to even give money in Origins and Odyssey. So they just gave us like experience points, I guess. Anyway, moving on from that. So what I got from that is the world itself will reflect what the character is doing. And I already feel like that is a big step up over the generic fetch quests that we had in Odyssey. That being said, obviously there are fetch quests because again, this is an RPG. And just like an RPG, the side quests usually end up being fetch quests anyway. Now, moving on to the next point, that is the design. Now, the design philosophy of the game itself has been changed from what we had in Origins and Odyssey. In both Origins and Odyssey, the gameplay was very heavy on damage per second, and it was more about, how you go through the game by playing it rather than the narrative of it. But there was something that Darby McDevitt said in one of his interviews. So when he was asked that the settlement will have some kind of a popularity bar, like we had our reputation systems in many games, so which measures how much people like you in that. He simply said that they experimented with it, but they didn't like the idea of numbers dictating the games. And he specifically didn't want a scenario like kill 30 bad guys and everyone now suddenly lives you. Likes you. Oh my god. I wanted to say love and I wanted to say likes and I just said likes you. Uh, I don't know, I'm just tired today. Yeah, moving on from that very stupid mistake. Yeah, so everything in this game will progress in a more narrative perspective rather than it having a progress bar which tells you, yeah, you have to like kill 30 more to get here. So that is something I wanted. In Odyssey, one of my main complaints. So, alright. I will stop saying one of my main complaints in Odyssey because that entire game is a complaint for me. Now, so the complaint that I had with this particular system was the power bar of the nation. So like, oh, you kill this camp and there is a certain amount of bar that will disappear and suddenly the nation becomes weaker. But we never saw any signs of that in the open world. Now that is something I absolutely hate when we do something in an RPG and the open world just does not reflect it. In this game, it seems like the things are going to be more organic. I mean, we saw in the gameplay demo thing, not the extended one, the original demo, we saw that there are, the settlements eventually expand. So like you have a small shack, then it becomes an entire house. So I think the settlement will expand and it will have more of a narrative focus than there just being a bar that tells you how much further you have to go. And I love that. I have been wanting this kind of a thing in a Assassin's Creed game since 2014. We may be finally getting that. So that again is a huge improvement over Odyssey in terms of how the game is designed. Now one of the things that were in the design also carries over to our next category, that is gear and loot. Now the gear menu looked very much like Odyssey, but if you paid close attention, the gear itself is not. Now how you upgrade gear has been changed from the previous games. Now it's not too different, but it is different. Now each gear has 10 levels. There are 10 set levels. Now there is no gear like, oh, there's a level 70 sword or a level 15 sword. All of that is gone. What they do have is gear rarity and a gear upgrade system. So you can upgrade a gear through 10 levels and also you can upgrade the rarity of a gear. To upgrade the rarity you need specialized items and the rarity themselves are fine, refined, superior, flawless and mythical. By the way, these are not represented as colors, rather it is just written in front of a item. So it is the item description in a way. So essentially if the item is just a sword. So say if it's a fine sword, it has the fine rarity. If it's a superior sword, it has the superior rarity. If it's the mythical sword, it has mythical rarity. That's how these things go. But there are colors in those items, but the colors are representing something very different. Now the colors dictate whether the gear itself belongs in the raven category, the bear category or the wolf category. Now raven is represented by yellow and that is for stealth. Bear is represented by red and that is for melee fighting damage. And wolf is represented for wolf. Now what I'm saying, wolf. Actually wolf also works, I guess. I can't even pronounce my own name. My own name is Sarnoom Wolf. Anyway, coming back to it. Wolf is used for range fighting and it is represented by blue. Now, I'll talk more about this particular thing in the abilities and skills section because that has more to do with the abilities and skills. Now, also these weapons and armors, they are not as DPS based as it was in Origins and Odyssey. Now, weapons have some stats like attack, speed, impact and crit damage, something that we didn't quite see in Odyssey. In Odyssey all we had was attack damage. It was either assassin damage or it was warrior damage or it was hunter damage. In this, these things are changing and every single weapon is going to have a different speed and of course improving the weapon. So upgrading the weapon is going to increase the speed as well. I don't know what the impact of a weapon does. I have yet to find that out and no one really has talked about that yet. So I'm assuming another Ubisoft Forward will have to solve that issue. So there's that. And there is also crit percentage. So obviously this is an RPG and we did see the numbers coming out of people. So yeah, there are crits here. The armor doesn't have any damage based things. All the armor has is armor, evasion and weight. That's something that makes sense. What armor you are wearing should not change how much damage you are doing to someone. Like normal people think like that, but apparently the people who developed Odyssey missed that memo. So yeah, while there are numbers here, it seems less dependent on numbers, as because the guy I'm basing this on, even he said that he didn't even feel much of an impact of these numbers, other than the 10 tiers of upgrade that there were. Now, overall, the combat seems less about DPS and more about skills, something I appreciate, and something again which is a huge improvement over Odyssey and Origins, which essentially they level gated you so much that you couldn't do anything unless until the game wanted you to do. I think this game is going to give us more freedom in what we want to do and how we want to tackle it, and I like that. Now, as I've said before, I'll discuss it in this section. Now, this section is abilities and skills. Now, Valhalla has abilities just like the previous two games in Origins and Odyssey, but it handles them in a very different way. For example, the abilities and skills are first of all now separate things. They are not together. Now, abilities are more of your active skills that you are using that consume the adrenaline. If you saw in the gameplay, there is an adrenaline bar. So essentially, if you use a skill, one of the adrenaline bar goes off, similar to what there was in Odyssey. Now, the abilities themselves, they are not flashy, and at least they are not, the abilities that we saw are not flashy. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Now, you get abilities from books of knowledge. These are scattered around the world in various locations. You have to find them, and that's how you get the abilities, and that is something I really like, as again, it encourages exploration. And now you are not going to know that, oh, there's a book of knowledge right there, or there's a question mark here, I may find a book of knowledge here. Or when you reveal it, oh, there's a book of knowledge in this area, you won't know where it is. You have to actually find where it is. So yeah, that is really good. And there are some actual usable abilities, like throwing the axes that we saw in the gameplay. Everything is unlocked from these books of knowledges. As for the skills, well, there is a skill graph. And although it feels a lot like Skyrim in the way it was presented, it is a lot different from it. Now, there are branches which go to each type of power, the ones I have discussed before: Raven, Bear, and Wolf. Now, and there are skills in these branches which represent what you want. So like the stealth skills are in Raven, the combat skills are in Bear, and the bow skills are in Wolf. So all of that is there. Now, you follow a branch by unlocking the smaller skills in that branch, and then you reach a node where the main skill is. Now, there are a few excellent main skills. One of the main skills, which one of the skills that we saw, was the stun attacks. That is a main skill. So essentially, you go down that branch, you select like a small melee damage boost or something like that, and then when you reach the node, you unlock this main skill, which you can use in combat, which you can use in stealth. These are not abilities, by the way. These are not going to use adrenaline. These are just contextual actions that you will get. So this will vary up your combat or your stealth or your bow gameplay, archery. So yeah, so again, overall, I love what I am hearing about this, and it seems like this time it's going to be less about damage sponge enemies and more about how much variety of moves that you have and how you counter the enemies. And enemies themselves are said to have different moves. So yeah, so that looks more like you have to actually learn more abilities in order to counter them, and not just you need to have more damage to kill the enemies. So it feels more dynamic, and again, this is a huge improvement over what Odyssey was. Now, moving to the next section of it. So now combat, as I have mentioned before, the combat is like Odyssey but way better. Now, what I mean by that is that there is less damage sponge enemies, as I talked about, and more reliance on different moves and abilities that you unlock. Now, the animations themselves are very good. The finishers are good because Assassin's Creed finishers have always been good. But also this time the finisher is not just limited to the last enemy. Instead, there is a kind of a mini finisher on every enemy that you're killing. So the camera kind of pans and shows that you're killing someone. I like that system because it kind of breaks up what you're trying to do and makes it more fluid, like the combat system we used to have before, even though the combat system is not exactly that. Now, there is a certain jankiness in the combat, and honestly, I am not too bothered about that because I expect that from combat systems that rely on this non-paired animation system. If I may add, even Witcher's combat was sometimes a little janky. The dodging, the actual hitting of swords, it wasn't always that fluid, even though it was very fluid. It was definitely better than what Origins and Odyssey did. But even then Witcher's combat was a little bit janky at times. So this is something that happens because you are not using paired animations. So even though something is supposed to hit, or even when it hits, it doesn't always convincingly hit, because it is just a matter of the hitbox going through each other. Anyway, moving on from that, we have stealth. Now, when I saw the stealth gameplay, I was thoroughly unimpressed with what I saw, but eventually something did catch my eye, and that was the QTE that was triggered in the stealth attack, and you couldn't kill an enemy outright. So if the enemy had more HP than you could damage him for, QTE starts off where this kind of two lines converge, and if you can stop it in the correct position, so there are these orange arcs almost, and they have a specific width. If you can stop these white bars in between that, you can kill these enemies. Now what I was worried about here was how consistently it would work and exactly how much would it work. For example, Odyssey also had this critical assassinate ability. Now it did 3 times the assassin damage, and we almost got everyone with that ability. But even then, there were always some enemies we couldn't outright kill. Now in this system, we can kill them outright. Again, huge improvement over how Odyssey worked, because when you are able to kill all the enemies in stealth outright, that means that your stealth is flowing in a proper manner, rather than it being broken up by sections of combat, which you don't want because you are playing in stealth. Now, I'm very happy to report that this is actually a skill in the skill graph called Advanced Assassinations. So essentially what is happening is, if you go up to an enemy and you see that this enemy has some amount of health left even after you try to do an assassination on him. So it's kind of like Odyssey in that regard. So in the bar itself, it will show if the bar is completely red, that means the enemy will die outright. If the bar is not completely red, be prepared for the QTE to come. Now, the QTE itself, I think, will be dependent on how much Raven damage or Raven skills you have, the total amount of power you have in Raven, and also how much hit points the enemy actually has. For example, I've seen 2 examples of this. So someone tried to kill a berserker, so they had kind of a wide bar because there was not much damage left to do. So there was a really wide bar, and you got a lot of time to stop the wide bars in their place. Now when he killed one of the major bosses, like smaller bosses, the bar was slightly smaller. So, that explains that it is a slightly difficult enemy to kill. But someone managed to kill the raid boss, the guy called Ruid. He managed to kill Ruid with just an assassination by just timing it perfectly, and the boss battle was done. There is no boss battle after that. So you just kill him and it is done. So by excellent job, you can skip boss battles. Means you can properly play as a stealthy character. So if you are properly invested in that, if you are properly invested in stealth, it doesn't just take you out of stealth and purposely push you into combat. And that is something, again, which is a huge improvement over Odyssey, and it completely disrupted the flow of both Odyssey and Origins, and this time the flow is maintained. So overall, I am very happy with what I saw in stealth. At first I wasn't sure, but later, after learning what is actually going on, I am actually very happy. Now, going on to the next category, I have social stealth. Now, not much was said or shown about social stealth except the fact that it is there. Well, apparently it is sort of limited to big towns and cities from what I am hearing about it. You can't do it everywhere. Although putting on the hood and the cloak will actually reduce the distance of detection. So if you are actually going into stealth, it is a good idea to pull up your hood, and you can do that with just a press of a button. So there is this tool wheel which is kind of reminiscent of the older Assassin's Creed games. Now there are no tools per se, but yeah, you can just toggle the hood and cloak, and that will kind of reduce your detection range. So you can go about stealth in a much better way. So yeah, so that is all we have in terms of social stealth so far, because the range of its applications remains a mystery. We still don't know, and I am assuming Ubisoft is going to reveal more of that in the next Ubisoft Forward, whenever that is. I don't know when that is. So I'm assuming the next Ubisoft Forward is probably around the time when Gamescom used to happen. So around August, September. late August or early September, because the game itself is coming out in November. So yeah, it makes sense for that late August, early September show. So that is probably when we are going to see more of social stealth. Now, that's that. That's all the improvements that Valhalla has made over Odyssey. And in my initial impressions of this game was, yeah, this is just Odyssey again, and I don't know if I'm into this game. But honestly, after all of these things that have come out, all of the things that I've seen, this seems to be a huge improvement over Odyssey. I mean, I don't think even I realized at first how big of the improvement it was. Now with the things that have come out and with the information that's out in the open and with the discussions that are going on, it is pretty obvious that Valhalla is a much better game than Odyssey could even dream of being. So saying Valhalla is just a better Odyssey is like me saying I am better at video games than my mom. In truth, there is no competition in this regard. It is just outclassed. So all that being said, these are the 8 features that make Valhalla much better than Odyssey, and I am kind of looking forward to this game right now. Probably I will buy it on day 1 when it releases. So yeah, press the like button if you like the video, subscribe for more content. I will have more content on Valhalla coming in the channel. I will have more Assassin's Creed content coming in the channel as well as Watch Dogs content. So if you want any of that, subscribe to the channel, and peace.